All right, let's dive into one of the most fascinating and honestly kind of frustrating stories you'll ever come across.
I mean, think about it. You've been miraculously freed from 400 years of slavery. You've seen plagues, a sea split in two, just unbelievable stuff. And then what? You immediately start complaining? It doesn't make any sense, right?
But here's the thing. This isn't just some dusty old story. The answer to this puzzle reveals a pattern that, well, it might feel surprisingly familiar to you and me.
Okay, so to really get why they were complaining, you have to understand the massive psychological whiplash they were going through. I mean, they were literally caught between two totally different worlds.
So on one side, you've got Egypt. Yeah, it was horrible, brutal slavery, but it was a predictable kind of horrible. And on the other side, the wilderness. Total freedom, but completely terrifying and uncertain. Nothing made sense anymore.
Let's actually break that down a bit. In Egypt, what they had was, you could call it predictable suffering. They knew they were going to get beaten, they knew it was hopeless, but they knew the routine. The wilderness, though, that required something totally new, uncertain dependence. I mean, there's no grocery store, no well with water just sitting there. You have to rely completely on a God you're basically just meeting. And that shift, it's psychologically jarring.
So, with all that intense pressure, how are we supposed to look at their complaints? Were they justified? Well, the answer to that gets us to the absolute core of this whole story.
Okay, here's the main idea, the big takeaway. Their struggle, totally understandable. I mean, who wouldn't be terrified and overwhelmed? But their response, that's what got condemned. And that little distinction, it changes everything.
And you've got to see the separation here. It's so important. God never gets on their case for feeling scared or for missing what was familiar. Of course not. Those are just human feelings. The problem was with their actions, the distrust, the way they started twisting the truth, and then the straight-up rebellion against the one who just saved them.
Wow, I mean, this one quote says it all, doesn't it? We were better off in Egypt. That's not just inventing. It's like a case of spiritual amnesia. They're literally rewriting their own past, making slavery sound good, all because they can't handle the discomfort of being free right now. And this pattern of doubt, it wasn't a one-and-done thing. Oh no, it built up over time. So let's be detectives for a minute. Let's look at 3 specific case studies that show how their doubt just got deeper and deeper with every complaint.
All right, case study number 1, the bitter water. Get this, they're just a few days away from the whole Red Sea miracle, and they finally find water, but it's bitter. You can't drink it. So their complaint, what are we going to drink? It sounds practical, right? But the real question, the fear underneath it all, was did God really bring us all the way out here just to abandon us?
And that right there, that reveals the first layer of their doubt. See, they weren't questioning if God could provide water. They were questioning his intentions. They were suspicious of his very character. They were asking, is this God even good? Does he actually want what's best for us? Okay, on to case study number 2, the manna. So God is literally raining down bread from the sky every single day. And what do? They complain that they miss the meat they had in Egypt. There's that spiritual amnesia again. It's such selective memory, isn't it? They remember the food, but they conveniently forget about the whips, the chains, the slavery.
So you see how the doubt is getting deeper? Now it's not just about God's intentions. Now they have a problem with his methods. They didn't want this daily bread thing that forced them to trust him every day. Nope, they wanted a stockpile, a pantry full of food, something they could control. They hated being dependent.
And all of this builds to a climax, the report of the spies. They're right there on the brink of the promised land. But the second they hear about giants in the land, it's like their fear hits a giant delete button on their memory. All the plagues, the Red Sea parting, the bread from heaven, poof, gone. And their immediate response? Let's pick a new leader and go back to Egypt, back to slavery.
And that just exposes the deepest issue of all. They have a direct promise from God staring them right in the face, and they just refuse to act on it. They let their fear of the giants become more real to them than God's own promise. At this point, it's not just doubt, it's a total rejection of what he said.
So when you piece it all together, they're doubting his intentions, then they're doubting his methods, and finally they just reject his promises. What's the one thing that connects all of that? Well, it all boils down to a fundamental struggle that is so human. Here it is. This is the core tension. Egypt gave them certainty, even if it was a miserable certainty. The wilderness gave them freedom, but with absolutely no certainty. And their story just reveals this profound human truth. For so many of us, the anxiety of not knowing what's next is actually harder to carry than the pain of being in a cage we understand. They just could not let go of control.
And this is where the story stops being about them way back when and starts being about us right here, right now. Because this whole pattern of choosing what's familiar over what's free, it's about as human as it gets.
I mean, their cry, "Let's go back to Egypt." It might sound crazy to us, but the feeling behind it, that impulse, oh, we know that feeling. We all face it.
Just think about it. What's our version of going back to Egypt? It's running back to that unhealthy habit because it's familiar. It's choosing to stay in that dysfunctional situation because trying something new and unknown is just too scary. It's when we start making the past sound better than it was, all because the present feels a little shaky. We do this. We all do this.
And that leads to maybe the biggest insight of all. Those 40 years in the wilderness, that wasn't just a long walk. The real journey wasn't geographical, it was internal. See, getting Israel out of Egypt took God one night. Getting Egypt out of Israel, well, that took 40 years.
So we have to look at the wilderness differently. It wasn't really a punishment, you know? It was more like a training ground. It was designed specifically to teach them how to depend on God, to test what was really going on in their hearts, and ultimately to reveal to them that their trust was still in themselves, not in Him.
And that leaves us with a pretty challenging question for ourselves, doesn't it? This whole story, it kind of forces us to look in the mirror and ask, is my trust in God just a fair weather thing? Do I only trust Him when life is stable and things are going my way? Or do I trust Him when He leads me into my own wilderness, takes away all the things I lean on, and just says, follow me anyway?